Even in Islam, without Noble Drew Ali, all prophets are honored, and that includes, you know, Buddha and all of them. And it's not that any of them are wrong when they're doing it in the way with pure intentions and the right way, but it's when people corrupt and do things the wrong way and are responsible for their actions, you know. And so that was another thing that helped me feel like more science was the way to go.
But more science, I mean, it's deep in the prison system.
Yes.
Prison, you know, because and a lot of people may ask me, because my channel is considered to be a prison genre channel. A lot of people ask me why I touch on a lot of these political, a lot of these religious subjects, but what people don't understand is in prison, much like society, you have the weak and the feeble that will just run to all of the pleasures of prison, the card tables, the drugs, the alcohol, this right here, you know, hoping that somebody's going to get in a wreck so that you can see a fight, all that stuff like that. But you always have, in every race, in every car, there's always that small pocket of people that are actually looking to enlighten themselves and looking to enlighten their fellow man around them. And sometimes our paths converge. And in the feds, it was much easier for me to learn more about all these different cultures and different cars and everything than I was in California, because California is pretty restricted. You stick to your people and that's it. The only time that me and you would ever have a chance to even really communicate would be if we're trying to squash a beef or just in passing or something like that. But in the feds, it was like a paradigm shift for me, because I was looking at all races were playing soccer and playing basketball and playing handball and playing softball together, you know? So it was a lot easier for me to kind of like drop my guard and learn that, you know, I have an opportunity to kind of like break this prison wall down and learn how to communicate with so many more people that I was never able to really communicate with in a prison setting. And that was one of the main components that I used to kind of disarm this whole prison mentality so that I could get out and become the person that I am today.
Where do you feel like your biggest shift happened at for you during all that lockdown time?
You know, I think that the first step was the fact that I realized that there was something going on that was much bigger than me. You know, there was a lot of kind of really spiritual things that were happening the 24 hours leading up to me being apprehended by the FBI. There's a lot of things that were going on in my life that were going on around me that kind of just paved the way for me to accept this greater truth that I didn't think was there before. And what it did is I just allowed it to guide me wherever it was guiding me. It pushed me into learning about the Moorish Science Temple. It brought me into contact with Jay Burkholder, the Luciferian, and I learned that. And I started to learn that there was much more to the picture than I ever thought. And it helped me to actually overcome a lot of ignorance when it comes to other people, you know? And it's just, that's what I did. I mean, I spent my whole entire time trying to learn as much as I could about everybody.
When you do a lot of that too, it shows, like you said, a lot of the ignorance. If they let you see how almost everything, even with like the Satanists, there's nothing really in there that tells them to go out and do anything evil. For the most part, everything is pretty much saying all the same things. Some a little bit different, some a little bit more extreme. But I know one thing that stood out to me for Islam was the level of discipline I noticed that Muslims had, especially in prison settings. Because, you know, a lot of other religious cars in prison are also sometimes looked at as check-in cars.
Not the Muslim car, though.
But definitely not the Muslim car.
No.
And so even though I myself was in the crib car, I actually ended up taking, going for my transition. So a little backstory on transitioning from considering myself a sect of Islam to just a Muslim was I started seeing a few divisions, right? Because remember how earlier in our conversation I mentioned the two different sides about the gods and the non-gods, right? So I learned that there's also sects of moral science. And so there's other articles and things like that, and there would be things that you could read with your own eyes that the Drew had said, but depending on which sect of moral science you went to, they would tell you, no, that's not what that means, or they would try to fast talk you into twisting wordplay, you know. And that's one thing for sure, as people of Africa, we're gifted with this wordplay, and we can make some dumb shit sound good. And so and so
I never heard it described like that before, man, but that's pretty good.
And so I also ran into, while I was in there, some people who called themselves Rastamos. I don't know if you ever came across a Rastamo. You ever came across one of them?
Nah.
So Rastamo is what the name infers, is a Rastafarian Moor. But the two are in opposition, right? Because if you're Rastafarian, from my best understanding of what I've studied, is you have to believe King Selassie I is also the return of Jesus, correct? And are you familiar with Rastafarianism?
I am, yeah, but not the branch that you were talking about.
Okay, so you know, with Rastafarians, King Selassie and all that, right?
Selassie, so, yeah, of Ethiopia.
Of Ethiopia,
right?
And so you also have to believe, though, as a Moor, that Muhammad is a prophet, and the stories that we're given about Jesus and what he did is what it is in its entirety, and there wasn't going to be a second coming of Jesus because you don't get reincarnated. And so you had that, as well as you would have some that would believe one of the tenets of Islam is you're not supposed to do drugs of any kind, anything, no mind-altering substances, period. But as a Rastafarian, marijuana is meditation. So how can you have, I mean, something that's for sure haram in Islam, but then be a Rastamo as well, you know? And so I've never ran into any sects, at least at this point of Islam, that feel like, well, in this sect we can do that and that's okay, you know? And so going through that and seeing those different things pushed me further into studying standard Islam, because I noticed there was one problem that I had with a lot of Moors too, is a lot of Moors didn't actually read the Quran from that. And all of the real solid good Moors that I ran into, like, you know, Pooh, they've all read it. But I've run into a whole lot of Moors, from my experiences, that only read the Circle 7 and have no idea about what the basis of anything is or what, and they'll take that and they'll run with it. And then you have a lot of Moors too that are Moors because were you familiar with that sovereignty law that a lot of Moors, I know you're familiar with sovereignty, but there was like a twist.
We talked all about that, the straw man and all that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's supposed to be another twist on it for Moors, and also because, you know, part of this twist is that, you know, when you're incarcerated, you're a legal slave. Well, under several old laws, it says that if the person is Muslim, or if they have the last name Elder Bey, which comes from, you know, the Moorish Empire, they cannot be enslaved. And so part of what they would do is they would try to convert and use those old laws and say, look, you can't incarcerate me here because this makes me a slave. And by your laws, you can't enslave me due to the fact that I'm an El or Bay as well as Muslim. And so these are the kind of characters I'm running into, and they're using, which happens in every religion, but they're using Islam and the Moorish Science Temple as a way to get out of jail and away from their consequences. And that comes in with another whole part of that fast talking thing, right? Because they're looking for a way out and they're spinning things. They're trying to bring people to the cause. And but what the cause that they're bringing people to isn't the things that I saw that Noble Drew Ali clearly stated that he was trying to do with his movement. Because, you know, with him, there was a declaration of what you're doing, declaration of faith. Everything, for the most part, was fairly, was pretty clear and mapped out in what he wanted. And so I ran into, do you remember Hassan, the Vietnamese Muslim?
Yeah.
So Hassan, even though Hassan, in my opinion, good dude, but he's nuts, way too far into the Wahhabism and all that stuff, he made a lot of valid points, though. And those points would all come up like, well, look, this is what this sect is saying, this is what they're saying, blah, 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 this, and here. But this is what Hadith says, this is what came from Muhammad, which it even says in the Circle 7, Muhammad, everything he did is right, which is what you should follow anyway. And they're going against things that are in the Quran of Mecca, which at the back of the Circle 7, it says that this is not to replace the Quran of Mecca in any way. So those things, again, made me question, which the Jew says you should question, am I following the right path? And so due to the level of confusion that I saw within the Moorish Science Temple, and as well as not enough people out in the streets coming together and creating temples, because there's very few cities in America where there's not a mosque, but there's very few cities in America where there's a temple. So the reverse is true, you know? And I felt that was reflective upon the people that are a part of this style of Islam as well.
Makes a lot of sense and kind of proves the point, you know, what we're saying about, like I said, you got those Satanists that will, like the Luciferian said, you know, you got some that will sacrifice children. You got some that will, you know, cut the hearts out of animals and do all that shit. But at the same time, we could also say in like Islam, you have them dudes in ISIS that think they can cut everybody's heads off, that think they can rape as many women as they want because it says that they could do that, but you already know it doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that.
So I mean, it's the proof is that anybody can pollute any faith, any belief system, and I mean that goes into politics as well. I mean, me and you have talked a lot about politics and stuff. We were there when Trump was getting ready to be elected president. We talked a lot about that. What is your like whole take on Trump? What is like your whole opinion on him as far as
my opinion of him now, I'm neither pleased nor displeased. There's things that he's doing that's for sure wrong. But my first opinion of Trump was before he became president was I like Trump. Trump was involved with MMA, which if you're involved with MMA is automatically a win for me. He was with Affliction. I don't know if you remember that.
Right.
And so after he came into office, in some ways he lost some of that old Trump. And also, too, for me, it was never a secret, and Trump never really held it a secret that he didn't care for blacks or Muslims, and even worse if you're black and Muslim. But that didn't mean that he wouldn't try to negotiate with you and do business and do things to help everybody in a way that's mutually beneficial as long as you're able to bring something to the table in some way. And so a lot of the bans and things that he put in place were against Muslims, like the Muslim ban and all that stuff, which even though got vetoed, it's still something that he tried to do. And then he also has this thing going on with JOD, or the DOJ, with Verizon. And Verizon is being sued right now. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they don't do contracts with blacks on big levels because of the fact that they are black. And that's actually against the law to do that. Have you heard about that lawsuit?
No, but I guess I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, it's real deep. It's between them and Comcast, and they've already lost, I believe, 2 courts, one local and 1 federal. And so now it's either in the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal. But what they're doing is they're not arguing the fact that they don't want to do business with blacks. What they're doing now with Trump is they're trying to take away the law that allows for blacks to not be discriminated on and do where you have to do contracts with them. And you can actually go on the Breakfast Club and they have an interview with a guy who's doing the lawsuit. Let me ask my sister what his name is to help you. Hey, Micah, the guy who's suing Verizon and Comcast, you remember his name? No. I apologize. I'll get it to you though. I'll if you need me to, but you can put it in on YouTube and also pull them up.
Yeah, please do. I might turn that into a whole topic.
Okay. But on the other hand, economy is doing very well. He does try to do things, even if it's cringy, to show that he is willing to work with anybody, like when he got ASAP Rocky's ass out of jail. And then on a real personal level, he's reduced a lot of sentences for my friends and your friends.
Right.
And, there ain't been, I don't care who it was, Obama, anybody. While I've been alive in my short time, there hasn't been a president who's done as much for my community as Trump also that I can recall. And so that's why I say I'm neutral with him, because he's done some things that are pretty shitty, but he's also done some things that are pretty good.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm not gonna, try to be his apologist, but what I can say is on the devil's advocate level, no pun intended since we were talking about Luciferians, but play the devil's advocate on this one right here is that he's a product of his upbringing,
For sure. I mean, first generation immigrant from Germany.
Yeah, I mean, he's a product of his upbringing. His father was much the same way, and I'm not trying to justify or excuse it, but I think, though, that he has learned in his years that it is necessary for him, not only for his own pockets, but just because if you live in a country where you got multiple different kinds of people, the prosperity of the people around you means your prosperity as well. When you got people that are not as prosperous as the rest, it kind of bogs down the rest of us in having to pay or cover the expenses of people that that can't get it together because maybe there's policies or there's laws or there's things in place. But being the businessman that he is, he's always looking for a way to improve on these things. He might not know how to go about it. He might not be the best person as far as being enlightened when it comes to a lot of these things, but his business sense is kind of like is the niche for the market that he's in, the job. You have to be a businessman to run the biggest corporation in the world, which is the United States. And the fact that you talked about the straw man, the sovereignty, what a lot of people don't realize is the United States didn't fight for independence from England. The United States fought for sovereignty. Big difference. A lot of people don't realize that, the words get lost and mixed in between each other. But sovereignty is something that is much, much different than independence. And basically what they did is they told England is that we're creating a corporation, a sovereign corporation. And everybody that is under this corporation are basically part of the conglomerate. They're basically small corporations. Each and every one of us is our own corporation. That's why our name is in all capital letters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the funny thing about all that is when you're dealing with the world's largest corporation, you have to be a level of scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a certain level of arrogant. You have to be cold. You have to be cynical. You have to be judgmental and all these things, because this is how the markets in the world work, you know? And I mean, that's pretty much all I can say about that, is that we have separated church and state, supposedly, according to the Constitution. And
Yeah.
it seems that more people want some kind of a Gandhi in there as opposed to having a CEO, of which we're supposed to have.
Exactly.
You know, we're not voting to have a virtuous, kind-hearted, you know, skipping through the flowers and you know, basically loving the world like some Hare Krishna. We have a scumbag, low-down, dirty CEO to run the business.
Which we need. We want to win, but we want to win reasonably also. We want to be, you have to have intelligence on both sides of it. You know, not everything can be good and not everything should be bad. And finding out the balance in between the two.
Yeah, and it's a very hard thing to do, man. I mean, you either have somebody who's too cold or you have somebody who's too hot. You know what I mean? You have, like, I think Obama was a weak leader. You know, I think he was pretty weak in a lot of ways. You know, when you say the old expression goes, you know, I'll bend but I won't break.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole world folded Obama up like a lawn chair, you know, in a lot of ways. But then he did some good things too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was thanks to him that I was able to get a FAFSA federal grant to go to school while I was still in the halfway house. So that right there, I give him thanks for. I mean, I'm fair when it comes to all this stuff, but as far as everything else, I mean, look at Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a low down, yeah, he was a predator, but he was a good CEO. I mean, he made a lot of money for this country. You know, there was a lot of speculation on how that happened. I mean, a lot of that was attributed to Newt Gingrich, but then again, he was a business-minded individual, but he was a scumbag in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, and you look out throughout the history of time, there ain't no world leader that is not stained with this. You know, I mentioned Gandhi.
Hi, Daddy.
Do you know the history about Gandhi's goings-ons when he was in South Africa?
No, I'm not aware of that one.
Would probably blow your mind.
I'm definitely gonna have to look into it now. While he was down in South Africa,
He didn't have any kind, choice words to say about indigenous South Africans.
Hey, Lamar, I'm trying to do something real quick. We won't be on here much longer. Y'all go in the room real quick.
We got Spud McKenzie right there.
It's my Dogo Argentino. This is Hannibal. He's actually named after Hannibal of Carthage, the African conqueror.
Yeah.
You can get him to look in. But they only come in white though, and they are mixed with bull terrier.
The irony of that one right there, right?
Hey, it's funny, right? Side note. So I took them to the dog park a little ways back, right? And older white dude, Jewish white dude, comes up to me and he says, "Are those your pretty white dogs over there?" And I said, "Well, yeah, they are." He said, "I believe it. They look like they have white privilege." And so, you know, from growing up how we grow up, you got to learn how to crack back real fast, you know. And I said, "They definitely are privileged and they don't know it. You can see how they act. You know, just shoot it right back at them, you know." But it was all in good jest. And, you know, me and that guy had a really good conversation and we had went into, you know, politics and religion and stuff, but it's very rare that you can have that happen. But
yeah, I have a whole different theory on who the modern day white people are, to be honest with you.
yeah.
I could tell you that my membership card hasn't come in the mail. So
Yeah, definitely says a lot, yeah.
it's like I said, man, there's a lot going on that most people don't really understand, And like I said, it's up to people like myself, like you, like others that are out there that are trying to actually open people's eyes to what's going on around them, to get out of this fucking fantasy land that they're living in long enough to where they can actually take personal responsibility and personal empowerment in themselves, to understand that the picture is much bigger than the optics that we're sold, the tactics of division and everything that are foisted upon us, all these different things to keep us at each other's throats so that we don't challenge the indifference or challenge the corrupt nature of the beast itself.
The things that you're doing now, though, with this podcast and reaching out to so many different people, like you said, the guy is out in Transylvania of all places,
Yeah. My artist who did
And so like that's big. And then on my end, one of the ways, tying back into the martial arts again, one of the ways I reach out to people is showing them, that there is a such thing as being rehabilitated and learning, and the things that you think are the boogeyman aren't, because, down here I'm in the Bible Belt, and it's very rare you run into a Muslim. And so a lot of people who meet me, their first time meeting me and then finding out that I'm Muslim makes them think and realize that things aren't exactly how they were taught, as well as later on when we get to know each other better, because I don't just run around telling everybody like, hey, I've been locked up for selling drugs. After they get to know me, though, and they see it, they're like, wow, I would have never in a million years thought that would have been something you would have done, And it's from going through RDAP and becoming Muslim and doing these things and meeting people like you who help influence me, because I don't know how much you realize, but you were a big influence on me, especially in the program. The biggest part of the influence was, is it all right if I say what your affiliation is on here? Or is that something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Being that you are a Sereno, and the Sereno car is known to, not fuck around when it comes to being in the program and stuff like that. And you have to walk a pretty fine line, because you can't, hide out like a lot of dudes do. You still, when it's time to go, you got to go. And there's still certain things that you have to do. And me, being a Crip, it helped. And knowing your background and seeing like how some of the other big homies and stuff knew you from other yards, and the respect that you had and doing what you were doing, watching you actually walk that walk and make a change and go through all that helped me take it more seriously as well. So even me doing everything I'm doing here is actually a tribute to you, from seeing them different talks and things that we had.
Man, I really appreciate hearing that. I mean, it's like I said, man, it was a thin line that I walked. A lot of it was due to the fact that, my reputation and my credentials were good. I had put in the work. I had been other places. I had experienced the California Department of Corrections. There were people that knew who I was. There were people that knew where I was at, where I come from, what I've done. And the fact that I got older and I was willing to take a step back and say, look, man, I need to work on myself. I need to figure out what my destiny, where I'm going in life. If you need me, I'm there. But the thing of it is that there was no shortage of young dummies that were willing to stand up and do everything they had to do. And now a lot of these dudes today have come back at me and have apologized. I don't know if you've seen it, but not too long ago, one of my homies that was he was over there in what was he? I think he was in Pueblo unit.
Mm-hmm.
His son died, 10 days old. So I put together a fundraiser for him.
Oh, is that on Facebook?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go look. I might have missed it.
It was a long time ago. It was back in it was quite some time ago. It was last year.
Okay.
But he was one of the guys. He said, "You know what? I was wrong about you. I was wrong about you. You're not soft, man. You're a lot stronger than a lot of us." And I'm like, it takes a certain level of courage and strength to actually go the route that I went, because all it takes is for one dude to misconstrue anything that I'm doing and stick something straight into my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived every single day knowing that the possibility that somebody can misconstrue what I'm doing and run with that was very real.
Mm-hmm.
But the courage to do it took a whole different kind of a character. And it was the kind of character that I was trying to basically lead by example with it. And it did actually help some people. And I'm glad that it actually touched you as well, because a lot of people don't understand me, you know? They don't understand the direction that I come from. It's, you know, I don't sugarcoat nothing, as you already know. Like when I was in there, I'm going to call your bullshit. I don't care if you're going to get in your feelings. How many people came to my cell? Oh, hey, I can't believe you did that to me. Well, too fucking bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
don't
no
like
fear.
it, beat it. Yeah, you don't like it, get out. Because you're not going to, you think that you're just going to skate through this and just get a year off and then break your mother's heart and then come back in here again? It ain't going to happen. Not as long as I'm here, because I'm in here for the right reasons. You may be in here to get out early, but what good is getting out a year early if you're going to come in a year late? What good is getting out a year early if you're just going to come back that much sooner?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what happens with quite a few of them. Now, surprisingly, though, our dad does have a good recidivism, an improved recidivism rate compared to just regular corrections. But that's definitely the case with the ones that don't take it serious almost every time.
Yeah, a lot of them cats went back, man. You know?
And then you can almost always tell which ones were going to go back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like I said, man, it's a very thin line. And I proved to a lot of people that you can actually walk this path, being a gang member, being a sureño, being with the business, being locked in as far as you're on count. You know what I mean? And you're all these things, man. But it's just, I had to wake up one day and realize that everything that I was fighting for, I'm not going to try to drop out. I'm not going to go PC and do all that stuff. I didn't have to. You know what I mean? I looked at it like I was being driven by something more powerful than that whole yard. And that power was going to get me through untouched to the end. And when I walked out that door in one piece with my dignity and my head held high, that I knew everything that I had done was for real. That validated everything that I had ever done. And I never took a look back. When I got into that truck, when that camper picked me up and took me down to that bus station, I didn't look over my shoulder to see the place I was leaving. It was gone. It was already out of my mind the minute I got into that truck.
Man, it was happy to see that you were one of the ones. But you could tell, though, even while we were in there, just like you said, I mean, you were always honest and did square business, and you did it both ways, in the ways that conducted yourself as a man in the eyes of the majority versus the few who did try to hate and say different things. And when I came home and got to come up there to Oklahoma and visit you and see all of that, man, and really see you putting it in and coming even here now doing what you're doing, it's inspiring. I hope others find it inspiring, you know, and I hope that from this podcast and, you know, seeing that from the time I've gotten out, you know, been able to fight and do things and, you know, buy my own home and some of these clips and stuff that I'll show you, hopefully that'll inspire them too and feel the same way too. Also too, for the guys who think they're too old to even chase a lot of their dreams. I'm 30, which isn't old, but I'm definitely not a spring chicken anymore either, you know? And I also start school here in the summer, like how you said, Trump helped you get your FAFSA. I'm going to be an x-ray tech. And so, you know, I got 2 kids, 2 gigantic dogs, you know, and went to a whole different state down here in Texas and recreated a community around myself, go to the mosque. And my wife also recently took her Shahada and converted to Islam about a week ago. And I hope
Beautiful.
Thank you. I hope that seeing these things and, you know, people who follow you and watch this, or anybody decides to follow me and the followers that I do have on Instagram and Facebook, I hope when they see those things, like, man, learn something about me, learn something interesting, and also learn that even if they didn't come from that situation, not to prejudge or judge to an extent to where a person can't prove they've changed to become something better after incarceration.
Yeah, and for any of you that want to follow Mr. Elijah Crumpton, I will leave the links to his Instagram, the links to his Facebook, and you can find him. Also, where are you at down there in Texas?
I'm in Tyler, Texas, which is East Texas. We're an hour and a half from Dallas and an hour and a half away from Shreveport, Louisiana.
So if you're anywhere close to that area and you're looking to get into the fighting skills of martial arts, MMA style fighting stuff, check him out and find him on Instagram, find him on Facebook, and he can point you in the right direction. You can learn a lot from this guy, man. I mean, I learned a lot from him. Learned that he's very strong puncher. I know that. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Like I said, this is my brother right here. And like I said, I'll cut for him to the end. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
Likewise.
Yep, that's family right there. And I'll leave all the things. Do you have any shout outs, any parting words you want to leave before you get off?
Man, just thank you for inviting me on here. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, so a lot of stuff didn't come out exactly how I wanted to, but I appreciate you having me on. And then as far as, definitely Allah, the biggest influence in my life and who helped me get here. And shout out to Ethos Team 1. We got other fighters that'll be coming out. My boy Rocky Scoggin, he just won his second fight. And, everybody else who's out, just released, been out for a little bit or about to be released, keep your head up and definitely whatever you want to happen, things you want to make a change, you can make it happen.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and close this out in typical Prison Break Raw fashion. Don't know if you know the closeout or not, but it's a memorable one at that. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoated, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that. You know what we're slapping them with?
Oh, that dick of truth.
Dick, close, but the dick of reality and the dick of truth. We'll start throwing that one in there. And we out.
All right.